In this video, I'm going to show you everything about Spotify for podcasters, formerly known as Anchor FM. I'll show you exactly how to use it and what are the best features and capabilities of this platform. Let's do it. So what is Spotify for podcasters? It's a platform created by Spotify fully, and now it's very clear because it used to be called Anchor FM, which was very confusing to people. So this is a free platform, I have to say. It's pretty much like the only podcast host that is totally for free. That's why it's used by millions and millions of people, including celebrities and so on. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe, comment for any questions, comment if you want to show some love, because it took me a lot of time to put this video together, so thank you. The first thing we're going to do is to go to Spotify for Podcasters website, meaning podcasters.spotify.com. And here we're going to sign up. So I'm going to click on sign up button. What you need is going to be email, okay? So 2 things, grow your show no matter where it's hosted. You can change your host, just grabbing the RSS feed. So you would click on the second option, I already have a podcast. If you don't have a podcast, you're going to click on I want to start a podcast, okay? So the options we have here is to sign in, to log in with Facebook, Google and Apple, or I can just create the account from scratch from custom email. And this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be sign up for Spotify, click. And then what's your email address? I'm going to have the date of birth. Basically, there's a limit of using Spotify. So if you're 13 and older, you're good. How gender is relevant? It goes for the analytics, right? So I'm going to show you analytics later on in the video. And you're going to see like who's listening to your podcast and so on. So of course, you don't have to say, but it's going to be helpful to other people as well. So share my registration data, nope. And then click on sign up. Logged in as Nicole, continue to the app. Spotify for podcasters, formerly Anchor. Let's go. To continue using Spotify for podcasters, accept the terms of the service. So basically you can read that terms and conditions and all that. You need to agree basically that you're not going to spread hate, discrimination, violence, sex offenses, like prompting people, trying to convince them to be harmful and all that. Plus the copyrighted content. There's no copyrighted content allowed on the platform. Forget about like fair copyright. There's no fair copyright on Spotify. So if you don't own rights to any kind of sound or song, let's forget it. Make your first episode. If you're not totally ready to commit, try making a short trailer. This is a perfect way to basically start doing something on here, as well as having your podcast published on the platforms. So for example, Apple Podcasts only display podcasts that have at least 1 episode. Otherwise, they do not display any podcast at all. Set up your podcast, set up monetization optional, and then get listeners. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to podcast setup. This is what you should do always. I'm going to go through every single feature here slightly later on, but we need to first set up our podcast. So I'm going to click. So podcast name. This is a very important thing because what you see is you can have 100 characters maximum. And that's basically deceiving because the podcast titles should be 20 to 30 characters maximum. So the shorter, the better, actually. So I don't know why they don't say that, but I feel like it's very, very deceiving having like 100 characters because then you have a long name. Theater addict, right? I have 14 characters. So I'm going to be like, okay, that's actually quite good. Theater addict in London or something. I have 24 characters. Podcast description should be around 100 characters. Should include host name. I'm not going to generate this like perfectly. I do have PodSqueeze for that or ChatGPT. Links in the description, by the way. So fill in the description. Bad news. You can only choose 1 podcast category. I know it's tough. You can only choose 1. That's it. If your podcast is in between, you're screwed. Podcast language is going to be English, and then I'm ready to go. Continue. So my podcast is now set up, not entirely though. So I'm going to go to settings and go to podcast settings. And here I have additional setup that I have to do. So don't forget to do this step because your podcast doesn't have any podcast art cover. And there are different settings in here as well, which you can link to your social media. For example, what I'm going to do, you can update cover art. So you can upload an image. So the image has to be square. Oh my God, I'm going to put this one. Image has to be square. So the ideal scenario is 3000 by 3000 or 1080 by 1080. That's fine. And then you can decide if you want to apply text to your image. So obviously, if you don't have the design, then you can generate it here by applying the text with your name and different fonts and so on. If you have your cover art fully designed, just upload the art and that's it. Okay, so this is my cover art. I would strongly suggest, by the way, to use text in your design to say which podcast it is. And it used to be so a long time ago, you actually had to have text in your cover art. You could not just have like a picture without text. So obviously they changed, or maybe they thought my podcast, it's called Road. Okay, if I scroll down, show voice messages button on Spotify for podcasters profile. Really good, by the way, if people want to send you messages. You can put your website URL here, great for SEO, and then social media, as I mentioned. You can delete the podcast, but let's not do that, okay? I'm going to save. So I'm going to go back to home, and this is going to be your dashboard. So here you're going to see everything from the analytics to single episodes and so on. Set up monetization, you can do that later and get listeners. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to upload the first episode to show you how it works. And then I'm going to publish that podcast after I tune everything. So when I click on upload, you have a couple of options here. So number one, you can upload audio or video. Your video will only be playable on Spotify. Not many people actually watch videos on Spotify, to be totally fair. They go on YouTube for that. I basically started uploading videos when this feature became available, and then I realized that I don't think it makes any sense. I'm like audio here and then video on my YouTube channel sometimes, right? The second thing is, in terms of the supported files, MP3, WAV, MPG, M4A, that's from your phone, and then video files, MP4 or MOV. I would strongly suggest using MP3 or MP4. It's compressed, the quality is still great, but the upload will take heartbeat, and then the whole process is much more simpler. If you already have episode finished, recorded, edited, then you drag and drop in this area right here, or you click on select file. If you do not have an episode, I want to just quickly go through this, okay? If you don't have the episode and somewhere you heard that you can actually create an episode in Anchor, Spotify for podcasters, I find it kind of long title, don't you? It's annoying. Okay, if you don't have that episode, what you can do, you can build it. So if I click on record or edit, what I can do, and this goes for the phone app as well, it works the same way. On the phone, it's a little bit, you can record up to like 3 hours with 5 different people, kind of like a phone call. Here on the desktop, it's a little limited, but it's much easier to operate, right? So you can record. So if I click on record, I need to allow my microphone, and then I hit record, and I just literally record, for example, my trailer. So I would choose the microphone and then I would record, and pretty much that's it. They have integration with Riverside as well, by the way. If you want 15% off, go in the description. I have a lot of discounts in the description of this video for different platforms that will allow you to speed up your process of creating a podcast. So I would suggest to check it out, plus subscribe, because I have more coming. And then you can record. So basically this can be between, it used to be like 30 minutes, 5 minutes. To be honest, it doesn't matter, because I would not recommend this. Number one, you can record with anything else. Like seriously, you can record with OBS, that's a free software. You can record on your phone, plug it in the microphone. Like recording like this via browser is just not a good way, because it's getting slow, it can freeze. Desktop recording like this, it's a little weird. Okay, when it comes to like Riverside, for example, the platform that is literally made for that, that's a different story, okay? Use Anchor, Spotify for podcasters for distributing your podcast because it's free, okay? And you have great features. So moving on here, whatever you record or upload, you're going to have in your library. So then you can adjust it, you can add some music and so on. There is an option to add music from Spotify library. I would not recommend using this option. This option is only available for Spotify. So basically, your podcast will not be available anywhere else because Spotify owns the rights for the song that you use. So it's going to be kind of limiting the audience. I mean, if you only want to be on Spotify, that's fine. My worry would be like, you never know what's going to happen to the song, even though like it's less probable, but still. On the other hand, you can always replace the episodes with different file without the music in the end. So we can always change your mind. I'll show you all that as well. Messages, any kind of voice messages. So you've seen in the settings before, you can allow people send you voice messages and they will appear right here. So basically, you can then include them in the episodes. You can download them as MP3 files and include them in your edits and so on. This is a very good feature, but people are too shy to record, I would say. And then we have some sound effects in between. So the idea is that you can kind of like puzzle your episode and put together your episode, bits and pieces, transitions, intro, the guest, the outro, all in this section. I'm not going to do this now because I believe it's kind of like there are so many different ways of doing this. If you need help or advice on how to record your podcast in the highest quality and very low budget, just hit me on my email, nicole@nicoleben.com, and I'm going to show you how to do this properly, okay? This option is great that it's here, but let's do it properly. So I'm going to actually go back. So you can go to home, to your dashboard, or you can click on the button which says new episode. And then you go straight to drag and drop or select a file. So I'm going to select my, let's do Tony. Why not? So I'm going to upload MP3 file right now. And what I need is the episode title. And by the way, episode titles can be a little longer than the podcast titles. So it's good still not to be above 60 characters. You can use PodSqueeze, the platform. I'll give you 10% off if you use code Nicole, but the link is in the description as well. So PodSqueeze basically can generate the titles with great SEO, descriptions, show notes, transcriptions, all that for you. So I would definitely check this out if I were you, and it's super cheap for what it does. So the title, 60 characters maximum. The description should include show notes. If you don't know what that is or how to create it, you need to check out my other video that I've done on it. You can click on it, okay? So I'm going to skip that. Publish date. So you can publish now or you can schedule the episode. If you want to launch the podcast, if I want to launch in like 1 month, that I can schedule in 1 month. But the episode will go through the system already and basically is going to go into the review process. However, I would suggest before you launch the first episode, I would publish immediately the trailer because first of all, it's not going to be published immediately because it has to go through review, which on Spotify takes a couple of days. Apple is like the longest one. What you can do, create trailer, publish now, and then wait a couple of days. And your launch with the first episode could be actually the future date. That's fine. Is this explicit content? Okay, so explicit content means that people will see E sign next to the episode. However, it still will be available for like kids or under 18 to listen to them. So I'm not really sure about this concept, like how's this helpful, but okay. Additional details, I'm going to click on that. So we're going to have episode type, which is full, trailer, and bonus. So sometimes you can use this as a bonus episode. If this is a shorter format, if this is something you just comment on, some trending topic and so on, you can have that this is a bonus episode, okay? So it's not going to be classified as your full episode. And trailer is going to stay on top of your podcast if this is a trailer or on the side, depending on different platform. So in this case, this is a full episode type, season number, it could be 1, episode number 1, and then you can change episode cover art. So for each episode, you can change cover art. I was not doing this yet, like in the beginning, and then I realized I had like 50 episodes that look totally the same. So I started doing this because it made me feel like, you know, there's a range of different content. So I always take a picture, a selfie with my guest, or of me if this is my bonus episode, which are where I'm just talking. And I publish that as a cover art. So I like to do that. Okay, next, let's do... Oh, sorry. The third option is interact, okay? So how this works, you can add Q&A or you can add poll as well. So these features will be available only on Spotify, nowhere else. I like to do that because it makes people like click on the episodes, interact, which boosts SEO as well. A lot of people don't even notice, but if they do, they kind of get playful with it. I like this. This is a good feedback. What did you think about the episode? And this question is added automatically like from now on. So I think they introduced it like a week ago. It's always on, so people will rate your episode. And then you have the poll. So you can add a poll. You can ask a question, be basically related to your episode. So like if the episode is about YouTube, it's like, do you have a YouTube channel? If it's about like working out, it's like, do you go to gym? And then you connect, you engage with your listeners, which is quite fun for that. So again, only available on Spotify. So I'm going to click next. And you have the summary, so you can review all the details. And then once you're ready, you can publish. So my episode is published, and this process takes time to review, but I kind of wonder if Spotify just knows who I am or whatever, because if I check my podcast, it's actually here instantly. Okay, so if you go into the settings and then go to podcast availability and you find that link, let me open it if I'm not logged in. Private window, and then we're going to paste this link right here and see what comes up. So it is a bit, wow, okay, definitely available. First episode is done. This is the Spotify. You're not available. Currently, I'm not available on any other platform, okay? So this used to work differently when I started my first podcast. But now it's all changed, meaning Apple Podcasts, you can click, where is it on Apple Podcast? It's not. So you have to go into Apple Podcast Connect, log in with your Apple ID, and then add your RSS feed to set up a podcast. And the same goes for Google Podcasts, okay? Your podcast is not available there until you actually submit your podcast. So where do you find the RSS feed, right? This is what you need if you want to put your podcast on different places. So you just go up, RSS distribution, enable, click on enable, and then your RSS is now generated and available. So you basically copy this RSS feed, and then you would go to Apple Podcast Connect and Google Podcasts as well. You input your RSS feed, and then you basically confirm that you are the owner of the podcast. And then the second thing is, this is your podcast URL. So this is like a website for your podcast, specifically on Spotify for podcasters. So it's kind of like a website of its own for you. Which is, again, totally free of charge. You can link to this page if you don't have like your own website and so on. Every host pretty much has this feature, but this is for free again, so it's great. So the last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to log in with my current podcast just to show you how to monetize. This is my podcast here. I do have the analytics. So the first of all, you can see I've earned 1 cent for 25,000 views. That's not a good deal, to be honest. Okay, so I have my profile page accessible from here. That's the same kind of URL as well that you can find in other places. However, it shows me here where my podcast is actually available. And then if I go back, I wanted to show you the analytics. So what we've got here, the number of plays overall, which is at least 1 minute, plays per episode, audience size. This changes, so this is last 7 days, literally, and Spotify followers. And then if I go in the audience, you're going to see the demographics. So you're going to see the country, and then Apple Podcasts, obviously. It's not going to show me on Spotify for podcasters how many Apple Podcasts subscriptions I have. Unfortunately, I have to go into Podcast Connect to see that number. My subscriptions usually come from Apple Podcasts, which I cannot check on here, which is a shame. Well, that's, the platforms are not happy to share the information between them, to be honest, if they are competitors. So you see the gender, then you see the age. I have a spike on here. And basically it kind of tells you the marketing strategy that you applied, if it's working or not, so you can measure it. And then you have episode rankings, so your most played episodes, and then to the least played episodes, okay? And if I click on monetize, so this is my balance. Wow, I'm gonna be a millionaire, guys. And definitely, so this one, I have a screenshot for you because every time I set up my subscription, I get an error page. So I'm not sure these tools actually want to be available to us. Or if this is a joke, like, oh, you can make money, but no, you can't because you can't set up. I don't know. And that's it for the tutorial. I have covered everything. If I forgot something, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, also comment, show some love so we boost the algorithm a little bit. Do subscribe. I'm really trying to grow my channel here and I'm doing my best to provide free content for you. So if you just watch 2 ads, I make a couple of cents. So it's much appreciated. And check out the description of the video because it includes a lot of useful links and discounts to really make your podcast grow and actually create in the first place. Thank you.